Hello, everyone. It's Felicia. I am so thrilled to have Kerri Cust with me today. She is a self-love coach, and today we were talking about self-love. Thank you so much for being with us, Kerri.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to delving into this topic because it's a really important one.
It really is, especially when it comes to loving yourself on camera. So I want everyone to learn more about you, Kerri. Can you tell us how you became a self-love coach?
Yes, well, I've had, like many things, you learn through your own personal experience. And so growing up, if I can put this in it, if I can fit this into a nutshell, it's just, I really struggled with self-love ever since, particularly being a teenager, and especially a lot of body image issues and just not feeling very confident in terms of showing up, like always, now that I look back, it was just always kind of playing small and trying to stay in these little boxes and doing everything that I should do. And oftentimes, a lot of women, we have this good girl syndrome where it's just like we want to sort of stay in this box and go along with the motions and not really fully be seen, but kind of still be accepted. We navigate these dynamics based on, how we grew up in society and all this stuff. And so, and my whole life as I got older and into my 20s, that foundation is the basis of which I made all of my decisions. So it was just, there wasn't this radical self-love that I had. So I was like making decisions in terms of who I married and what job I did and like all the hesitancy around sort of showing up really fully in my life. And so my life took a big dramatic turn in about 8 years ago. And I went through a divorce and I lost my brother all within a 3-week period. And I had been lucky enough to have done some, personal development type stuff. And so I knew, I was like, okay, something's trying to get my attention. Like I really need to look at how I'm showing up in my life, the choices I'm making and everything. So I went on sort of a little bit of an eat, pray, love journey. And I did a lot of work on myself and, went and lived in a yoga community for a few years. And I just learned so much about spirituality, being human, being a woman, and being sort of the gift that the feminine has, and learning about the masculine and the feminine and the real beauty and the gift that the feminine brings. And they would be telling me, because I'm a woman, it's like I also I'm sort of the microcosm of the macrocosm of that divine feminine. And I started to learn about all these wonderful things about being a woman. And I was like, oh, it's like I never even thought to think of myself in that level of bigness. And being in a little island in Thailand, it was obviously very hot. I had a lot of body insecurities, and I just started to be around people that were so accepting and starting to slowly make different choices and changes around, I can't be completely covered up at the beach because it's so hot, and starting to step into new experiences. And through that experience, I started to discover it's like, oh, wow, this is, there's things about me that I really like and love, and seeing other people see me in a different light and not just being so narrow and in my own insecurities and my own negativity about myself. And that really changed everything for me. And so when I started my own business and started to make videos, at first I was like, years ago, the idea of that, I was like, no, not gonna happen. Now it's like, no, there's lots of things that I like about myself, and I've learned to tap in and discovered more about who I am. It's like, so I'm more confident in that, and I can show up within that authentically. And that is, for me, I think that is the most empowering and liberating thing that, not just women, but all of us can do, is to start that journey.
Yeah, that confidence in yourself. And you talked a little bit about this, Kerri, but I want to just flesh it through a little bit more.
Yeah.
What objections about yourself did you have physically and emotionally?
So I had huge insecurities around my body, huge insecurities. So things around weight. I have a birthmark that covers my whole left arm. So my whole life, I've always worn long sleeve. So being a kid at the lake, it was like bathing suit and then t-shirt, gym class, long sleeve shirts in gym class. Like, no, like no, total hiding. And so when I started to go on this journey of of self-discovery, I guess you could call it, I started to notice as I stepped through, and people were, having a really supportive network is something that's really important. And people who would just acknowledge, in workshops wouldn't be like, yeah, we notice it. And so what? And I was like, and it's just like the weight of it went away. I was like, I've been carrying this for like 30 some years. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And just like that weight of carrying it, just sort of like, and starting to just acknowledge it and accept it instead of the pushing it away and hiding it. Like there's some sort of shame rather than showing it. It's like, hey, I'm really insecure about this, and stepping forward with it anyway. And, having that courage and the courage to be that vulnerable, what that gave me in return was, again, I could only call it like such liberation, because it was so freeing that I didn't have to carry like the weight of my insecurities anymore, because it had really held me back in my life. And I always say this, it's like nothing in our life is compartmentalized. So if you're hiding in one area, or you feel shame about something, or you're playing small, I can guarantee you that's showing up in other ways or in other areas of your life. So once we start to step forward, open up and share our insecurities and move forward, the ripple effect that has on every area of your life is sort of astonishing.
I can really tell too, like it's amazing, just your story that you're sharing with me, you being vulnerable with me and telling your story, it makes you so much more relatable. And I believe it makes you more confident as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to be able to own it's like not the hiding or the shame around it, just be like, yeah, this is part of who I am. I have these qualities. I have these physical attributes that it's just finally getting to a place of accepting them, but more than accepting them, just being like loving that part of myself and I think this is what being in that yoga community helped me with. It's just like, this is, whatever anyone's sort of spiritual background, religious background, it's like, wow, I'm sort of made in this image, or I'm a manifestation of, the divine feminine, this goddess. Like I'm still have this resonance as the goddess, whether I have a birthmark on my arm or not. It's like, I still have that. And so connecting to that is something that's really grounded me and almost gave me permission to sort of just be like free and open.
Very powerful. I want to discuss what self-love is. Can you describe it for us?
Well, I think that self-love is beyond just accepting who you are, but loving who you are. So sometimes it's just, there's people when they think about self-love, they think like they're just going to accept, okay, I have these things, I'm just going to accept it. But the self-love is much bigger than that. It's like the radical, I'm trying to think of another word for love, where it's like this celebratory, where this part of you that you can just be proud and own who you are and all the attributes that come with you, all knowing sort of the good, bad, ugly, and divine parts of you, and just being able to show up fully in that, of just like, yes, I'm in my humanness, and this is something that I don't have to hide, but I can show to the world, and I can fully love all the aspects of me without the hiding and the shame. And I think when we start to go on the self-love journey, it's like, well, how do we start to do that? And so many times what's really happening with women is that we aren't choosing ourselves. We're making different choices based on what other people in our life need, what our partners or what our kids, and we're never choosing ourselves, or what things that we really get locked into what we should do. And I think the first step when we start, or when we're in this place of self-love, it's like we're confident enough to to choose ourselves, to prioritize our own needs, to prioritize our own desires. It's like we come to this place of really loving and knowing our worth, that it's like, no, I would really this is really important to me, and putting our needs and our value and our desires on the table, rather than kind of pushing them away and doing everything that everyone else needs or wants. And so I think self-love really looks like really making sure our own cup is full.
That's a huge takeaway. I love how you just put that in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's something that's really, once you go through it, it's almost hard to pinpoint what that is. But once you go through it and you reflect back on where you were and where you are now, it's like, oh wow, I do love myself more. It's such a tangible experience. It's hard to articulate, but yes, thank you. Tried my best.
That's really smart. And I can relate to that as well. Just being a mom and a stay-at-home mom for several years, I felt very washed up until I really started to take my power back and do something for me. It really just made me feel so much more alive, had so much more purpose. So I like to think that's part of the self-love, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that also goes back to the choice. It's like, well, what does Felicia need? Yes, Felicia is a mom and a wife, and Felicia is also her own person. What does that person also need? And so that's a huge takeaway as well, of just like, what choices can I start to make to start to choose myself and put myself back on the menu? That's a huge act of self-love. And then once we start to do that, because it all starts within ourselves, it's like, once you started to do that, it's like, look where you are now and look how much more fulfilled you are. And, the beauty of that, it's like, yes, you do it for yourself because we're ultimately responsible for our own self-love, our own needs, our own desires. But I would probably guess that it's like, now you're a much better mom and a much better partner because you gave that to yourself.
Yeah, it's been transformative, just taking care of myself instead of not myself, putting everyone first. So
yeah.
that's a huge difference. And I want to go back to this idea that has been very popular lately, body neutrality and body positivity. Can you go into the differences and what it means?
Yes, I think there's a lot of times I hear women who are just like, well, I've accepted my body. I've accepted this and I've accepted that. Yeah. And it's like, there's a very sort of flat energy to that. Like there's nothing that you need to do. It's just sort of like, oh, I've accepted it. And where I try to get women to shift is to say, like, okay, my question would be, is accepting your body really enough? And it's like, how can we begin to really loving your body? Are there things about your body where it's like, instead of just looking at like, oh, okay, well, I've accepted this birthmark on my own, it is what it is, sort of thing, rather than like, what do I really love about my body? What do I love about my, we're talking about your physical body right now. It's like, but what do you start, like, what can you really celebrate? What do you really like and love about your body? And starting to shift from that sort of flatness to an energy that's a little bit more active. And so that's what I would get women to question. It's like, okay, do you really love your body or even love yourself? You can go internal with this as well. Or have you just sort of accepted it? It's like, oh, okay, it is what it is. Like, you can even feel the difference in that. One feels just a little bit more passive, a little bit more sort of neutral, rather than one being really energetic and active. So it's like, no, I really love my body. I can really celebrate this. I can really say, this is what I love about myself and my body. So there's sort of those two differences. And so sometimes I see a lot in society, again, where it's just like, I've accepted it. It's like, okay, well, okay. And can we shift into like really loving that part of yourself, really loving your physical self? And so that's a big journey to go on, but it's very important.
Very important. And what about for women who, they don't like necessarily their body right now, but they have an image of what they want to be? Like, what would you tell them? Like, they want to lose 20 pounds. What would you tell them as advice?
So what my question would be is like, what would that losing that 20 pounds, what would that give you? And ultimately it's like, what feeling would that being 20 pounds lighter give you? Like, starting to tap into that feeling, because really we're motivated. Like, what really matters is how we make others feel and how we feel. So there's times when maybe we're in a certain situation and we're feeling really fulfilled, and it's like, it's the feeling we're going after. So that's really why it's important to know, your core desired feelings of like, how do you want to feel in your life? Because oftentimes when we look at, okay, well, I want the red sports car, I want the hot boyfriend or the hot girlfriend, or I want to be skinny, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's like, we're really going after the feeling that we think that thing will bring us. So what I would encourage, I would bring that awareness. And it's like, well, what is the feeling that you're really going after? Because oftentimes, if we don't go after the feeling and we lose the 20 pounds, well, there's a good chance you could still be really uncomfortable and not so happy, even 20 pounds lighter. So it's like starting to look at like, what's the feeling you think that thing will bring you, that being 20 pounds lighter, for this example, brings you? And how can you right now make choices that bring you that feeling that you want to feel? And having that fulfillment. And that is really the key, because when we put all these external markers outside, it's like, this is what happens when we go after all these external things again and again. And then we're like looking around, scratching our heads. It's like, hey, well, why am I not happy and fulfilled? I have this external thing now. Why that didn't work? And we're sort of confused. And it's like, well, right now, how can we start to be aware of what that we believe that the feeling that thing will bring us? And how can we start to make choices now in our life to feel that way? So that is really the key.
That's super powerful. I love that, chasing that emotion and that feeling, because emotion drives action as well. So
Yes.
if you can shift your mindset, you can also achieve what you need to do by shifting your feelings to about something.
Right. So it's like, what's the feeling? How can you bring that into your life now? And then if you make a conscious choice from this more fulfilled place to maybe take care of your body rather than just thinking you have to be skinny, there's a difference there, then you're coming at it from a much more healthier place. And you're not like, it's the difference of like having that fulfilled feeling. Like maybe you think it's going to bring you this feeling of joy. It's like, we'll start to bring in things that into your life now that give you joy. And once you make the choice to start taking care of your body more, it's coming from a healthier, more joyful place, rather from this really beating yourself up because you think you're fat place. It's like, that's a slippery slope of like, okay, well, if we keep going on with that feeling, it's like, well, what do you think is going to happen when you do lose the 20 pounds? It's like that self-hatred or is still going to be there, or it's not going to be enough. And it's like, well, I need to lose another 10. And then I lose, it's like, how can we start to bring in that experience, that feeling that we want to bring right now, no matter where we are, whatever circumstances are, what size we are? That's something that's really key, because it's all internal. So anytime we're looking for answers outside, that's a bit of a slippery slope. It's like it's our responsibility to just like, okay, what choices can I make right now to bring me how I want to feel?
Love that. So instead of looking for outward validation, you're really looking towards that inward.
Yes.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
What about how self-love impacts how you show up in video? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to show up, or professionals, they want to be on video, but they have a lot of self-judgment and insecurities. What would you say to them?
Well, I think that once we step into, go on to this journey, and it is a journey. So there's levels to this, right? It's not sort of a destination, as cheesy as it might sound. This is a process, right? And so I would say that once you start that journey for yourself and starting to tap in, what you really value, how you really want to feel, and you start to fill up your own cup or put yourself back on the menu, make choices for yourself, there is an energy, a radiance that shifts or becomes open within you. And it's like, there's way more confidence to show up. And also the beauty of that is that you're way more magnetic. So when it shifts everything of how you show up on camera. First of all, you might feel that you actually want to, or that you're willing to, rather than hiding. And also coming from this authentic place of just like, oh, I do love myself, or I do see the value that I bring, or I do know that I have a lot to share with the world. When we come from that place, we're feel that like authentically inside of ourselves, I mean, that's so appealing. People are like, oh, I loved your video, or I love this. And it's so inspiring. And that's the beauty of it, because we do this all for ourselves. But the truth is, the impact that has on other people, you also give other people the permission to do the same. So what I would say to people, who are looking to go on camera, have that judgment. It's like, well, what value do you have in terms of what you teach? What is wonderful about you? What's great about you? What do you love about your physical appearance? What do you love about yourself? And starting to put a lot more energy on that. So many times we're just putting it's like, well, I'm not good enough at this. I'm not this and da, 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 da. It's like, but that rhetoric will always be there. Always. So it's like, can we just start to shift? It's like, you don't have to change that. Just let's put it on a shelf, all that negative rhetoric, and start to sort of just turn up the volume on more of that self-love. What's important to you? What do you value? What's wonderful about you? What's a really beautiful part of you physically and non-physically, like more internal, and starting just to focus more on that. And that will that's like gives you insights where it's like, oh yeah, I do have that. And I am really good at this. And that in itself shifts your energy. And so again, you're more confident to step out on camera, but it's like, but then it's like, you're more radiant. People are like, oh, I always want to watch your videos, or I really loved what you shared. And so it begins to shift when we start to look more at the positive rather than just beating ourselves up with the negative.
I love that. That is so powerful, Kerri, because when you show up authentically, when you can show up from a place of love, I really think that it resonates. It really can show through the lens and through the screen. I think it really can impact people more powerfully that way.
Yeah, very true.
I want to ask you if you have 3 top tips for women to have more self-love so that they can show up confidently on camera.
So number 1, I would say choose yourself. What choices do you want to make for yourself? So the ripple effects of this will increase your radiance on camera, but starting to really make choices for yourself of like, well, what do you want to share? What's something that you really need in your life? Like starting to put yourself back on the menu, putting your needs and your desires and what brings you fulfillment and excitement, starting to make choices around that rather than sort of forgetting about yourself and just kind of putting everything that you desire and need under the table. So I think that's a big one. Absolutely. Number 2, I would say, I would suggest maybe people start to, like what I was saying before, of starting to look more at the positive than the negative. Again, that negative rhetoric, it's always going to be there. We're always going to have that talk where it's like, well, you're not good enough to do that. Or it's like, oh, or when we get through that, well, who do you think you are that you think you can do that? And so when we start to just turn up the volume on more of the positive stuff, the stuff that really fulfills us and gets us excited, then that begins to shift who we are and how we show up. So starting just to, acknowledge the negative stuff is there, but how can we turn up the volume more on sort of these beautiful aspects of ourselves, internal and external. And number 3, what I would really recommend, and this really shifted things a lot for me, is having a really solid community of support, people who are going to be your cheerleaders and who are going to remind you how beautiful and how talented, it's like we can't also, like, yes, this is an internal journey, but we're also interconnected and we need other people. And so when things really shifted for me in my journey, it was having other people around me saying, encouraging me and being like, no, that you look so beautiful. Your body, how the things that they saw about me that they loved. And I was like, oh, it gave me a different perspective. So I think having a really encouraging type of community around you is really, really important. And so finding other people who are maybe having challenges showing up on camera or running their own business, and you can just get on the same page and really encourage each other. I think that is a game changer too, of just, who's in your environment and are they helping to increase that level of confidence and self-love.
I agree. It really makes a difference, especially when you have those positive people around you. It makes a world of difference. Those are great tips. I want to ask you, if you were given the scenario before a woman hits record and she is not feeling it, she is just having so much self-doubt in that moment, what advice would you give her to give her the courage to hit record?
So there's a couple things. I would remind yourself of the wonderful things that people have said to you that you know is true. It's like, no, I can do this. It's like, if you look at like, for Felicia, for you, for example, it's like, wow, I have all this level of experience. I have so much knowledge, like reminding yourself of that, giving yourself a pep talk. Another thing that I would suggest, because when we're plagued with that judgment and that self-doubt, it's so heavy. Like it feels heavy. And it's just like, is that how you want to show up on camera where it's like, oh, I'm just this sort of thing? And so really find a song that you love and dance right before you get on camera. It literally, like if anyone knows anything about yoga, that heavy energy literally in your body gets moved around and moves up, and it's a bit more refined, and there's a little bit more like there's a lightness that comes about you, and that shifts your energy in terms of how you feel about yourself and therefore how you show up on camera. So I think especially for women, getting that movement, having some fun. This doesn't all have to be so heavy and serious. We can bring a lightness to it. So for me, it's like, I love putting on like Mariah Carey right before I have to do something and just dancing around and having some fun. It doesn't have to be so heavy and hard. We can bring a fun and playfulness into this. And that in itself is really attractive, and it's in a very appealing energy. So I think movement also, like reminding yourself of the value that you have. It's like, no, I know that I bring this, and I know I love this about me, and I'm really good at this, and move that booty. Yeah.
I tell my students that, you got to get up and fill your body with that oxygen and get the blood pumping, and it just changes your energy. It really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it does.
I do it all the time.
Yes.
Makes a huge difference. So Kerri, any last messages you want to share?
Oh, I just think going on, for people, it can seem like a very big and heavy journey to go on to get to this point where you can really confidently say that you love yourself, that you're proud of yourself, that you can show up and, really celebrate yourself. That can feel really daunting and heavier. It's like, but there's nothing more rewarding. And and the impact that has, like if you have children, like to see that, like the impact that has on everyone around you. So of course we do it for ourselves, but it's like people are around us in our presence, and we're from this more fulfilled, loving ourselves sort of place. It's like we're such an inspiration to other people. And so yes, we do it for ourselves, and it is a journey. It's never over, but the reward is so great. And and just to let go of all the doubt and the judgment and the shame. Now that I've gotten to this place in my own journey, I see like the weight that had on me and how that held me back. And just to no longer have that and have this like pride in who I am, and to celebrate myself, and to be able to show up confidently and just turn record. And it's like, it's just so, again, liberating and fulfilling. And so it's just very much worth the journey.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job. I'm very proud of you, watching you.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, how do women work with you? How can they find you?
So I have a website, so kerricust.com. So I have a free initial 1 hour call. So if people are wondering about more information, or want to do a women's group, or just want to ask me some questions, or I do tend to work with people one-on-one. I would love to also, be invited to like women's groups and starting to like be a guest at some evenings. So if that's available, that would be wonderful, because it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I know it's a game changer. So all the details there. You can send me an email through my website if anyone has any questions or want to know more or share anything. I'm here.
Awesome. And you're doing amazing. And this was wonderful. Thank you so much, Kerri.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I hope it served in some way.
Yes, you absolutely did. Thank you so much for your time. This was awesome.
Thank you.